Greetings, Foundry. This is Jim Shuler, the medical director, and I wanted to take just a few minutes to talk to you about all the COVID noise that we have been having. You've heard so much information that has all come from the various media sources, and it's very difficult to sort out what to believe and what not to believe. Quite simply, COVID is just a virus, a typical cold virus that's out there. And subsequently, with that cold virus, we catch it like any other cold virus. This is a depiction of what those little viral particles look like. And there's one depicted right here. Keeping in mind, these things are so small they can't be seen. They're 1,000 times smaller than a bacteria, and we can't even see them on with a microscope. You catch this like any other cold virus when somebody coughs or sneezes. These things are broadcast out, and subsequently, you wind up getting them on mucous membranes or your fingers and then touching your face. You then develop the process of the cold. Now, what actually happens? It's fairly simple. With this virus, as long as we've been seeing it over the past few months, we've found a 60-30-10 principle here. About 60% of the people have mild symptoms. Another 30% of the people that have this have no symptoms whatsoever. And that's why this is so difficult for us to get a handle on. In other words, it gets into your body. A few of these things break out. You share it with the community. And then subsequently, you've never known that you've even had this. And then your immune system develops an immunity and you go on as if nothing has ever happened. Of the 100 people, 100% of the people that get this, only 10% get sick, and some of those sick enough to go to the hospital and subsequently succumb to this. Why are people dying from this? And there's actually a fairly complex answer to that. If you look at the top of the cell, the top of the slide here, you can see an air sac in this area. That's where air exchange takes place in the lung. What happens is right at the very top, you can see these overly large little virus particles. They attach. They undergo the process of replication, which means they insert their genetic material into your cell. Your cell begins to make more viral particles, and then they bust out. At that point, the body says, uh-oh, I'm under attack. Right here, you can see when these bust out of the cell, that's when the first process of the infection happens, when we realize that something's not wrong. Not actually we realize it, but our immune system realizes it. Now, after this process happens, you can see a number of things. Some big words here like activated T cells, alveolar macrophages, and neutrophils, and monocytes, and cytokine storms, and fibroblasts. The most important thing to realize is that nowhere in this process do we actually see the virus. Interestingly, what's happening is that this virus is no longer present. This is a process of our body making an inappropriate response. Normally, the wall lining of the alveolus, or the area where air exchange takes place, is very thin. You can see over here where that wall has thickened, and that impedes the air exchange. So basically what happens is that we have a very inappropriate immune response to this virus. And that happens in about 10% of the people. Now, what the Foundry is doing is what we call universal precautions. These precautions are set up to keep us from getting any communicable disease that's normally an airborne or droplet nuclei, um, transmitted viral infection like influenza, other common colds, things like that. The staff will tend to go home at the end of every shift and then come back. Subsequently, the staff are at risk for bringing this into the community. The community, however, is not wearing masks when they are living at their home because they are in what we call a closed circuit. Their only risk are the staff members. Keep in mind, most of our staff and most of our clients are young and healthy and generally will fall into that 60-30 category. In other words, they may become sick, but not even know that they've become sick and can spread this. All of the precautions that we have out there are not according to the World Health Organization's guidelines for how to get rid of this, but this is a governmental attempt to minimize the impact on the medical system. If you recall, we are now right in the middle of the cold and flu season. This is coming at exactly the wrong time when our hospitals are already pushed to the edge with influenza. Needless to say, the government is saying, we have a collision going on here, let's minimize that. So all of the protective attempts, all the masks, all the closing down of everything is not an attempt to stop this illness at all. We all know we're going to get exposed until we get a vaccine at this at some point, which is probably about a year away. That means since we're all going to get exposed, we're all going to get this thing and develop likely some level of immunity to it. We have no idea how many people are already safe out there. But as easily as this is transmitted, a number of people have already had this, but this is a hidden population. So we're hearing a lot about the people that are getting sick and about the people that are dying. That's not an actual representation of what's really happening out there. Most people are getting minorly ill to not ill at all with this. The Foundry is doing everything that it can to protect its staff, and we have testing readily available so that if anybody does develop symptoms, we can find if they have this and we can isolate them and get them to appropriate treatment. I hope that answers some questions. Should you have any further questions, I am always reachable through the Foundry. And thank you very much for spending a little bit of time with me today.